I know a lot of you are probably over at Thrifty Kniffy, so you might see this a little later. And enjoy the live over there as well. This is the time that I was able to do it, so I'm going live now. And well, so far 20 seconds, and I am here by myself, but that's okay. What I'm planning on doing today? Well, as soon as I get somebody to say, yes, I'm here, I will start yapping and talking a little bit about stuff. But what I want to talk about is a few things. One of them is blade rub on traditional pattern knives, the quality of case knives versus other USA made knives, the future of knife collecting, and why there's so many modern slip joints out there. Hi, Mimo, and hi, Prop Blast. I've got a couple people here. So, where should I start? I think I'm going to actually start with something that I like to do to begin with, and that is just show a couple new knives and also a couple old knives that I haven't shown in a while. And one of the knives I'm going to show is a Barlow because Tony Thompson, I think his name is, recently did a video on some of his favorite Barlows. He's a big Barlow guy, and I'm wondering if he's got this one. This is the Mark Twain Barlow. This is done by Imperial a while back, probably back in the 80s or 90s. Hi, pins and pin blades. Glad you can make it. This one is kind of interesting. It's just an Imperial, it's your typical Imperial Barlow. Hi, Donald. And one side says Barlow when you're holding it that way. The other side has Mark Twain's signature on there. And other than that, there's nothing about this that makes it a special kind of Barlow or anything. Otherwise, it's just your typical Barlow by Imperial from back in the days. You got the, you can see there the shell handles. You see the little bend over there. If you saw a video from Knife Delight, he showed once you pull those two off, you can just slide these off. The Delrin covers and everything just all slide right off, and it all locks in when you slide it down and then just clamp it on. So it's pretty cool how these covers are on there, because these pins are. I think the pins hold this onto the shell cover that slides off. You see the liner there. That all just comes off, or that's the this is all just kind of pinned into that liner. Then you got the stainless steel back springs there. So, but it's a pretty cool knife, and they did a really good job with the Delrin on these. This kind of looks like stag to me, nice and big and chunky. And like I said, the big thing on this was just the Mark Twain signature. And this is one of, this is probably one of those $5, $10 Barlows when it first came out. They're kind of hard to find these days. And it's one of my favorite USA made Barlows, the Imperial Mark Twain Barlow. And definitely something that was made for the boy out there. And for those who aren't familiar, if you've ever read The Adventures of Huck Finn, there's one portion in there where Huck is talking about finally being able to buy his own Barlow knife. He got his own Barlow knife, and there's a big deal in the book that, and that was written what back in 1850s or so. So it was a big deal that Huck Finn and Mark Twain and the Barlow knife. He kind of popularized it at a time. It was already popular at the time, though. Any case, moving over, I talked about this knife already. This is that little, I think they called it the baby trapper, baby bear head trapper. And as far as I know, this is the only one made by Rough Rider, the one that was in tortoiseshell. However, when I was trying to find these, I found this one, and it is very similar, as you can tell, except it's more squared off at the top, but it is a 2.5-inch Barlow. As you can see here, it is made in Pakistan, and this was made by Frost. Of course, the box says Valley Forge Cutlery, and then on the side here it says Newark, New Jersey. Nowhere on the box does it even say that it was made in Pakistan. I was trying to remove the all the stickers that they put over everything to see if it was under here that it said Pakistan, and it might have said it there. I don't know. But in any case, the number for this was the the VF100DS. The DS somehow stands for Stag, but the VF was for Valley Forge. The 100 is the number that Frost uses for this pattern. I don't know if that's going to help or not, but they call it a baby trapper, and it is very similar to this knife. The big difference between the two is, well, this one has the clip blade here. This one also has the clip blade. Half stop going on. A little bit different shape in the blade there, as you can see, but about the same size. Different kind of clip going on though. This one is a more delicate clip, and you got a little more belly at the end. This one is a little more sharp and pointy. And no half stop on here, half stop here. And then on the other side, this one has the spay blade that you can open from the front. And let's get the spay blade all the way out. This one, the spay blade opens from the back side. And again, slightly different shape in the handle or in the blade. Definitely a different look to the spay blade. But both of them, this one actually has a very good mirror polish going on with it. So I got to work on getting that all cleaned up afterwards. And as you can tell also, it had a nice chunk of Stag on there too. So it's a pretty cool little knife. I found it for a very nice price, and so I went and grabbed it. And by a very nice price, I think it was like under 15 bucks for this. And not bad for a little Stag baby trapper. And I think that's what they call it, the baby trapper. Is that on the box here or not? No, they just call it a trapper here. So I don't know. But the number is 100. So, and that if you're looking for it, it would be from Frost. They do. I saw another one out there that was in blue bone, but the blue bone was horribly cracked. At least the Stag isn't. So that's pretty cool. I also like a pin blade on a Barlow. And I also like a what you call it, a spear point on a Barlow. Got a couple spear points on Barlows too somewhere here, but they're behind me in my with all my case knives, and I'll be talking about case knives in a bit. Here's another one I recently picked up, and I will be showing this one a little bit more in a little bit because it falls into the whole blade rub thing. But this is an old Smoky Stockman that I came across, and it's a pretty big knife. Yeah, right at 4 inches. Yeah, 4 inches on this Stockman. And I saw it and I was like, man, that has some pretty color going on there. I don't know if I would classify it as tortoiseshell or not. It is definitely in the family of tortoiseshell, but the coloring of this celluloid is really cool. And the handle, this was made by Old Smoky. Now, for those who aren't familiar, Old Smoky was a trademark of Smoky Mountain Knife Works before they did Rough Riders. So this was probably from the either the 80s or 90s from Old Smoky. And the cool thing about this one is right here, it is made in Solingen, Germany. Old Smoky, Solingen, Germany. And you got the blade etch here for Old Smoky. That's the blade etch they used to use. Most of the Old Smoky knives I've run across are made in either Pakistan or China, with a lot of them being made in Pakistan. But this one was made actually in Solingen, Germany, and it is really well made. These are rounded pins. They are definitely exposed, as you can kind of see there, but they're rounded and nice and done. And nickel silver bolsters. You've got the brass liners going on the backside there. 83 Smoky Mountain. I've got it. I'm going to go grab that one in a minute. Here's the spay blade on the backside here. And then the other blade is the sheepfoot blade. And what I wanted to show you is, well, look at how much space you got between all the blades there. This is going to be the one that introduces us to blade rub, because this is one of the few stockmans that I've encountered that do not have any kind of blade rub. We'll get back to that in a second, but first I want to go and grab another Old Smoky I got. I believe it was Old Smoky. If not, it says Smoky Mountain Knife Works on the tank stand. It's one of my toothpicks. Here we go. Here's the large toothpick I got. And when I first saw that, I bought this one online for like somewhere around $25, $30 or something like that. And you see here, 0.58. I don't remember how many they said they made of these. It was something like either 100 or 250 or something like that. It was a low number that they made of these with these wood scales. From what I understand, they're walnut scales. I don't know for certain on that. Uh, but when I saw this knife online, I'm looking at it and going, man, that looks very much like a queen toothpick because of how short the bolster is down here. You know, the nickel silver bolster. Queen always had a very small powder horn at the end of their toothpicks. And sure enough, after I bought it, I showed it online and it was confirmed. These were actually made by Queen Cutlery for Smoky Mountain Knife Works. And we see here I don't know if you can make out the blade edge or not, but it's woodpecker. They called it the woodpecker. And you see here, Smoky Mountain Knife Works. And on the back side, nothing. But these were actually made by Queen Cutlery here in the United States in, Titusville, Pennsylvania. The Woodpecker by Smoky Mountain Knife Works. So that was pretty cool. Anyway, I wasn't planning on showing that one, but I started talking about Old Smoky, and that's what happened. So you do find older knives from SMKW before Rough Rider and stuff, and you'll usually see either ones that'll say Old Smoky on them, or some of them will just have a Smoky Mountain Knife Works tank stamp. And those are usually special factory offerings from one of the companies out there, quite often Queen. But now, let me get into what I was going to talk about to begin with, and that was, I'm also looking at these Barlows, but I'm not going to talk about those yet. I want to talk a little bit about blade rub, and that came up because of this knife here, and we've heard a lot about the blade rub on this knife because it was substantial, and I have mentioned that that is a problem I've noticed quite often with the 32 pattern from Case. The fact that it often has blade rub, and you see it right there, as clear as day, right across there. Right, see it right there, the blade rub, and this one has it on every blade. One of the problems with this knife also was that every blade also had a bit of a burr going on when the knife first showed up, which also probably did contribute to the blade rub. As you can see on here, notice how there's several little striations and then a long one going down. That's not a fingerprint. That is the blade rub right there. You can see it a little bit better because of a little finger oil on there. But overall, is a good knife. I agree, Stan. But there was substantial blade rub on it. And this is something I was expecting from this knife. And a lot of people said, well, I don't find that blade rub on other knives. You know, it's Case. Case is notorious for blade rub. Well, no, it depends on the pattern you're getting from Case, because any knife that has blades dropping from both ends, such as this one, this is a Baron's Son Boy Scouts of America knife. It has blades on both sides here. And if you listen, I don't know if you can hear it. I can sort of hear it. I feel it more than anything, but I can feel the blade hit and rub when I'm opening it. And you can see it right there. Right there's the line. It happens all the time. And the same thing with this one. The main blade, I don't feel it at first, but the line is there. You can see it. And that line happens not from that blade, but from the sheepfoot blade or the coping blade here. And I actually feel it moving across the blade. You know, the only way I can avoid increasing that blade rub is by opening this blade first, then getting this blade out, and then shutting this blade, and then getting this blade all the way open and using it like that. I'm not going to be doing that as a everyday use knife. And the blade rub is just going to happen. I know it's going to happen. What was worse, this was Baron Son. You see that? There is a significant gap between the liner and the center spacer and the I'm sorry, between the center spacer and the two back springs. You see that? I've actually had to try and work that down a bit because it was not lined up correctly. Um, when I complained to Baron Son about that, and one of the main reasons I complained to Baron Son about that is I also dropped the knife and the front cover popped right off, so I had to stick it back on, which wasn't too hard, but it was just, you know, why should I have to stick the cover back on and re-glue it? In any case, when I called Baron Son and complained about that, their excuse was, well, that's an old Camillus tooling that we're working with, so that's why you're having those problems. And they blamed it on Camillus because Camillus went out of business. They bought their tooling and they were having issues with it. No, it's still their problem. Did I have similar problems with the old Camillus knives? Yeah, actually I did. But the thing is I did not have the covers falling off, and this was not screwed up like that. Um, Here's another Baron Son knife, and this is the Scout knife. This is something that irritates me more than blade rub. When I'm opening this up, I can feel the pivot grinding all the way around. When I talked to Baron Son about this, I sent him a letter explaining to it, and I told him I've got plenty of old Camilla Scout knives, and they do not act that way. And they said something about, well, it's the pancake construction that Camilla's used, and it will wear itself in. It's been wearing itself in for going on 12 years now. I don't know how many times this is open. The pivot still grinds. Baron Son blames it on Camillus. Also, where's it at? Blade rub there, and a distinctive line right there too. Kind of hard to see, but it's right there. More blade rub. What is it happening from? Well, it's happening from here. And every time I open this, I feel it click. You hear that? Maybe you can't. But right as it goes across, it pops. So the little punch leaves a line. Never fails. Blade rub, it happens. Here, this is my unexcelled. This is GEC's, what do they call it? It's not the muskrat, it's the possum skinner. GEC possum skinner. This is one of my favorite knives from GEC. It is a beautiful knife. Look at that red bone. Is that not just beautiful? And the jigging is really great, and the action on this is very smooth. You didn't feel it, but I felt it already. See it up here? That happens every time I open the blade. There's a line for me. You can also see some other scratches here. See it as the light reflects across it? That is blade rub on a GEC. There's nothing wrong with this knife at all, but it is happening. You also get a line over here every time this Wharncliffe blade opens up. And the reason it's doing that is because of the kick down here and the tip of the Wharncliffe blade. So even with the GEC, which costs a lot more than you would spend on a case knife, you get blade rub. Here's my little 33 conductor, and it also has blade rub. You look down here and you go, no, that can't be. Why would you have blade rub? Those blades aren't even touching. You're having it because right there, because of where the uh, the tang kind of cuts in a little bit, the blade hits it every time you open it. And you see that line? There we go. Forms a wonderful little line there. And I'm not complaining about this. Trust me, I'm not complaining about the blade rub on any of these knives. What I'm saying is, if you've got blades opening from both ends of the knife, such as this knife, you know, this knife here even, this one for sure, you have the potential for blade rub, and it's probably going to happen sooner, if not later. Even on expensive knives like GECs. These are pampered. I don't go around doing a lot with them. Matter of fact, most of the time they're living in their tube. You know, I don't take them out a lot. But you saw there, right there, there's blade rub on even GEC knives. People talk about, I'm never going to buy another case knife because they always have blade rub, they always have this, they always have that. Well, I'm telling you right now, if it is a handmade knife, chances are very good you're going to find flaws. Someone was complaining about the gaps in this knife because you could see light through it. And you know what? Does that look like it have any gaps? Not really, right? But I tell you what, if I open this up and I try real hard, and if I hold it up to a light bulb or something, I will see light pass through there. I guarantee it. And you know what else? I can do the same thing with this knife. If I try hard enough and hold up a bright enough light, I can definitely get light to show through here. To me, that's a parlor trick. If that's your standard for a case knife, that you cannot ever see any light passing between the back spring and the liner, they will fail every time. It will happen. I can't imagine a knife. There are knives that maybe you can't do that with, but for the most part, I find it all the time. I also find it with the Rough Rider Reserve knives. Yeah, you open it up, you shine a light, you can actually see some daylight in between there. You get a bright enough light, you can do it. So if that's what you want to do, then that's great. If you don't want to see daylight passing through the back spring, here you go. Old Bear, there's no back spring. Open L, there's no back spring. No light's going to shine through the back of this knife. So there you go. That's the way it is. Also, blade alignment. This is a Baron Son, number 20. So this was 20 of 50, I believe, in the Bonfire series. This is out of Red Hill Cutlery. Blade alignment on a knife that has torque screws. You would expect that to be perfect, but it isn't. It is not right down the center. It is definitely favoring the backside. For some people, that's a problem. It is not a problem for me. I will often point it out when I'm doing a video because I know it's a problem for other people. But as long as that blade is clear of both sides and this one is clear of both sides, that's fine and dandy with me, especially on something like a lockback, because lockback blades often will have a little bit of wobble in them, and that's not a problem for me either. So I don't know. I just wanted to point it out. And no, Prop Blast, blade rub is not an issue for me. If it was, I would not even buy a Stockman. If the blades hit or if they cross, and by cross, that would be like in the case of a blade crossing. Actually, I have a knife that has blade cross. I forgive it though. Where it is here. This is an old Camillus knife from World War II. USA, U.S. Army issued engineer knife. And if you notice here, it definitely has some blade rub going on. What's more, when I go to close this, you will see that it actually hits. And if I were to let it go, it would drop all the way down on the wrong side of the punch blade. So every time I go to close this knife, I actually have to open the punch blade, get it out of the way. Then I can close this blade, push it over, and drop it. I don't have an issue with this knife doing that because the knife is almost 90 years old now. So that's okay with this knife. But for a new knife, if it had something like that happening, I would have a serious issue with it, and I would actually be calling the factory, or I would be returning it to the retailer I bought it from, or getting in touch with the company that made it and said, "Hey, you need to repair this knife for me," because that should not happen on a knife. That is gross negligence on the part of whoever's building it. And I did have a case canoe that came that way, but that is a totally different story. And I did have the canoe, the blade, the front blade, or the spear blade was dropping on the wrong side of the pin blade. And I contacted Case, showed them what the problem was, and they said, "Yeah, return that, and we'll fix it." And it was upsetting to me that I had to pay for the postage to return the knife. I would have turned it back into the folks at Amazon at the time. Let's get this open. There we go. Yeah, but I decided to go the case route instead. But anyway, that would be an issue for me. Another knife that's kind of new. I think I showed this before, but this is that really nice copperhead, the Mustang copperhead by Frost. And this is the one that has the cool lock. Anyway, got this one, and I wanted to show it as I'm trying to pause and get a drink of water. And also grab another knife that isn't on the table right now. All right, I'm back. Here we go. Big one. It's an M4 bayonet. Doesn't look like an M4 bayonet because it's got this plastic handle here. But this is an M4 bayonet made, I think, somewhere around 53 to 57, somewhere around there. See there, TWB, that's the company that made the sheath and supposedly the knife. I will have to talk about this a little bit more in the future, but there's some definite discrepancies on this knife that makes me think it's a parts knife. And one of them is, well, you got the bombs logo here, which is from World War II. And you see here that it says, if we can get it to show it, probably not. Upside down, I can show it. See where it says USM4 Camillus? This is the stamping for a guard from World War II. The addition, the way this is added onto the back here, this is from that period that it's supposed to be from, if I can get it to show. See that S with the P in there, the number going there, and then the way the tang has been pinned in place there. This is all correct for the 50s. And the cover here, or the grip, that is also correct for the 1950s. And I do know that TWB supposedly made most of the knives from parts supplied by Camillus, but I'm not 100% sure that this is a knife from that time period or not. What I do know is if it wasn't, I'm not exactly sure when it was. The sheath is definitely from that period, And if you notice here, I have a cut off piece of belt here, just a piece of web belt that I'm hanging it with. And the reason for that is, well, let's go around the corner here for a sec. Okay, we're over here. I have finally started moving some of the knives around, and what I'm doing is, so the M1 bayonet, USN M1 utility knife, then the M3, the M4, my other M4. This is actually from, I think, 98 or so. M5, M6, M7. I'm sorry, M7, M6. Notice the M7 has a handle that is very close to that other M4 over there. And that, but the ring up front is different, much larger for the front of the M16. Anyway, I got that going. And then I've got my other bayonets from different places down here. This was an M5 bayonet that's been converted. This is the Austrian knife, whatever, the 81, I think it is. Swiss, Swedish, AK-47, I think from East Germany. And then Japanese Type 30, M19, no, this is the Spanish Mauser and the M1907. I'm sorry, the pattern 07 for the British SMLE. Then over here, we got some of the USA made knives. So I have started getting this wall restructured a little bit. So hopefully it's getting a little better. And by doing so, I also ended up having to take a good dozen knives and just put them in storage. I had more knives than I know what to do with. And the thing is once knives go into storage, they tend to move out of the collection. Oh, Mexico, and no, Nepal, Finland, Canada, Germany, USA, USA. Oh, I should get up a little higher. USA, Germany, Canada, Finland, USA. This is actually made in Taiwan, I think. Who knows where? USA. So, been trying to get them associated by country and stuff like that too. Want to try and get knives from around the world. That's one of my ideas. Anyway, let's get back over here. This wall is going pretty well too now. So I've got my SEJG5 here, which I use quite often. This is probably this is going to be my camp knife if I ever go camping again. And then these were just some of the small knives. And then there's my little Izula. Oh, my little Finnish knives. These are going to work the way over to the other wall. A little purple kangaroo in the corner there. And then down here, we know what that is. The Ozark Trail fake out. And I'm working on the wall here. I've got the next board in place. I've got to get all the screws on the bottom so I can hang more knives there. And then I'm going to order another dozen of these little things so I can get this going all the way across and get more knives in storage there. And then I will probably also have to run another line for hanging knives. So that's what's going on with this wall here. And we're back over here, and let me see, where was I at? I think I've killed blade rub already, right? I've gone through blade rub and all this other stuff, and also talked a little bit about case, and I'm going to defend case a little bit more right now, in that one of the biggest problems case has these days is they do have some quality control issues. And I know part of that, they're still suffering because they had a lot of people retire early during the COVID epidemic. And with that, there was a break in continuity within the staff. So a lot of people who left left behind a lot of people who were not quite trained as well as they should have been yet. And because of that, you had this drop in quality. And now I'm not forgiving it. I know somebody's already out there screaming, this quality drop started long before COVID. It's been going on forever. Every time they change, it's been going on, and there is some truth to that. We saw that also with Queen Cutlery, when it went from being owned by Servotronics, the same people who owned Ontario, and also when Servotronics bought Queen Cutlery. Every time you have a change in ownership, there is a loss. And part of that is a lot of people who were working at that place for a while. It's like, you know what, I'm not in the mood for a new change. That happens a lot. It's like, I'm just going to move. I'm just going to leave now. I don't need to stick around. I don't need to go through this change. I'm going to leave. And when they leave, they create a bit of a vacuum. New people come in, and you have issues. It happens. There's no doubt about it. And that is what happened with Case when you went through the Parker years, then you went to the Zippo years, and we're still living in the Zippo years. Well, you also had another catastrophe with 2001. Suddenly it's like, oh man, we can't sell this, we can't sell that. You can't take these knives on a plane now. All this other stuff, it causes problems within the industry. We know that with also with Swiss Army, Victorinox, they had the same issue. It's like, their best-selling knife could no longer be carried on a keychain and onto an airplane. The classic SD suddenly became contraband on an airplane. This knife you could have easily carried before 2001 on an airplane. After 2001, you would not be able to carry this on an airplane. And all it is a little clip blade on this side and a pair of scissors over here. Of course, a woman with a pair of knitting needles, she could take the knitting needles on the airplane, but you would not be able to take your little um, little equal end penknife or this little penknife from Case onto an airplane. COVID hits, they have a lot of people with experience who decide to just go ahead and retire, cash it in, move on, because they're not going to be able to survive that year off. It started off, 1 week, 2 weeks. The next thing you know, it's 6 months, and then it's a year later before you're actually getting back into the factory. And even then, you're coming back into the factory slowly, and you're trying to figure out how to ramp things back up and everything. This is not easy to do. A lot of thoughts were lost, and it really hurt the knife industry as a whole. You saw the same thing with Great Eastern Cutlery. Before COVID, you were much more easily, it was much more easy to find Great Eastern Cutlery knives. They were making more of them. After COVID, production numbers dropped. They became much harder to get. And a lot of people, such as me, said, I'm not going to chase them. I don't have the time. If I can't get it, I'm not, they release it in the middle of the day. I'm at work. By the time I'm off work, they're already sold out. They sell out within minutes. I'm not going to chase it. I don't have the time, and I'm not going to buy them on the secondhand market. You know, why should I pay double because somebody else bought two and now they want a free one? That's not the way I'm going to go about getting GEC knives. So I, since COVID, I have been unable to get a GEC knife because they sell out too quickly. They don't make enough of them. As the people who get them, they're the ones who really are dedicated GEC fans. But that's not going to allow GEC to prosper and grow if they continue to make small numbers and they just sell all those out. That is just keeping the status quo in place. It's not allowing them to become larger. Maybe that's all they want to do. But if the company is not growing, eventually the company is dying. That's the way I look at it. Yes, it just feeds the scalpers, and the thing is the scalpers make money off of it, but in the short run, that's my feeling is like it does it. The scalpers do no good for GEC. They do not help build the company. Matter of fact, if anything, what the scalpers do is they hurt the company because it means, okay, a few select people that GEC chose to give knives to at a fair price, are now going to make a lot of money off of them at my expense. How does that make me feel about GEC? Case has another problem, though. They are having a problem with quality control. And there's a few things they could do that could help with the quality control issues. First of all, they need to do a better inspection of their equipment or a better inspection of the products that they are releasing. I do agree with that. The other thing they need to do is they need to actually take a step back. GEC needs to step forward. They need to start trying to produce more so that they can actually fill the demand. Either that or just raise the price so that everyone suffers and people will think twice about buying two just so they can sell one. But with Case, what Case needs to do is they need to reduce the number of knives they're making, especially the number of patterns. They need to throw more knives in the vault, I think. They do not need to make as many knives as they're producing right now. They're flooding the market with trappers. They are also doing their hardest to try and fill all the special factory offerings and stuff. Maybe they need to cut down on the special factory offerings that they have through Red Hill Cutlery, through Shepherd Hills, through Smoky Mountain Knife Works, and other places that have, special factory offerings. Maybe they need to reduce the number that they're doing with that. And they need to concentrate on the patterns that they're doing really good with. Sad to say, but yeah, maybe they need to concentrate more on making their trappers. The other thing they need to do is something they have started doing, and they need to work more and more at that. And that is in the world of modern folders. I'm not a big fan of modern folders. This knife is not perfect either, but it's a start in the right direction. They're Crossroads series sod busters. This one is just using a pack of wood handle, so it's not using anything special when it comes to the handle. They make a lot of them with micarta. But what they have going for them with this is the fact that they're using S35V steel, I think. Yeah, I'm sorry, S35VN. So that is something that a lot of people have been pushing for, use of a better quality steel with Case. So they do need to do that. They need to look at doing more knives such as this. They need to come out with a modern style trapper along with the sod buster that they've already done. Put it in the S35VN. The thing that gets me with this knife is this knife went for, I think, around $70. And do I have it here? Gotta find my other. This is bad. I just had the drawer out and now I can't find it. Here we go. So here is another of the Case Sodbuster Juniors. See, same size and everything. This one is in the light blue. This one was on sale for $45, but they have similar knives in bone that go for about the same price as this. The stag bone Sodbuster Jr. with 420 steel, their case true sharp steel, costs more than this knife with the Packwood handles and the S35 VN steel. So they're making these when you consider the prices of their other sodbusters, they're making this at a pretty affordable price. Now, a lot of people are thinking $70 for that is too much, but where's it at? Um, Hold on. Spyderco Dragonfly out of Japan, H1 steel, $80. Spyderco Dragonfly, also out of Japan, stainless steel handles, a little tattoo work on the blade there. This is over $100. So when you compare it to other knives out there, compare this not to this case sodbuster. Is this a case? I think it is. Yeah, not to this case sodbuster. Compare this to another knife, say from Benchmade or something, using a similar steel to S35VN, and then say $70 is too much, for a knife made in USA. Even compare this to, say, a buck 110 using their 420 high carbon steel. This isn't much higher in price than that. So when you think about it in such a way as that, the price is fair. So they really need to look more at their modern folder line. They need to consider that. And this is the thing that's going to kill a lot of people when I say this. They also really do need to consider looking at marketing an offshore product, similar to what Buck did. Remember, Buck, one of the main reasons Buck managed to stay above water is they moved production overseas. They started making knives in China. They continue to make some knives in the United States, but they started also making knives in China. Now, I'm not saying Case needs to start making knives in China, especially at this point in time. This is not the time to decide to invest in a factory in China, but maybe they need to consider looking at other locations where they can make uh, a pocket knife, perhaps Italy, perhaps Spain, perhaps France. Maybe Case could actually team up with Opinel and come up with something of that nature, or something out of Germany or something. Or the other thing is some of the country, Poland is another choice that I can think of, because that is a company that Camilla's teamed up with at one time, and that was when Poland was communist. Camilla's actually teamed up with I can't think of the name of the company. It begins with a G, and they came out with a line of knives. Oh, geez, I'll have to go grab one now. Syracuse, the Syracuse Knife Company. These knives were made by Camillus, and they were made in Poland. They even had the Polish eagle on the front right there. And they sold well enough, but it was one of those things that you can do. And maybe that's really what Camillus needs to do now Case needs to do now is team up with a company like that and start producing something for the U.S. market. Uh, and even if it means putting the, the Case name on there, and it would not be the first time that Case made knives overseas. Everyone screams at Case because, oh, Case has to make knives in the United States, otherwise I will blah blah blah. Well, their Kinfolk line of knives, I have one of them. Again, let me go grab it. I'm sorry for this. I wasn't planning on going down this street, but here I am going down this street. Right here, this Kinfolk tortoiseshell whittler that I bought a while ago. This knife, as you can see right there, this is made by Case, and it was made in Germany. So they have done it in the past. They have made other knives in Germany in the past too, and Case really needs to consider doing that again. And yeah, they are going to catch some flack, but if Case wants to survive, and if they want to continue to grow, the real thing that they need to do, and might be something that GEC also needs to do, is consider offshore production somewhere. I would choose not China right now because of the current environment, but and by environment I'm talking about um, the economic environment and everything, and the fact that that would be something that a lot of people would have an issue with Case, especially at this point. But if they were to team up with a company or a country that is considered more of an ally to America, such as Germany, Poland, Spain, France, Italy, something like that, or England, and start producing a knife at a lower price and bring in a budget line in some way like that, even though it's not a great drop in price, it might be something that would help them out. Korea would be another market they could consider. I don't think Japan would work these days because it would probably be an even higher price knife if it was coming out of Japan. And then the other thing is consider looking at modern folders, which they're already doing, and then cutting back on the number of lines that they have out there of traditional patterns. Throw more knives into the vault, and maybe what you do instead of producing the 32 pattern, or, well, not the 32 pattern, the 18 pattern every year. Produce the 18 pattern every other year, or produce the the um, the canoe pattern every other year, or produce fewer of those knives. It will create the demand, but they need to do something to improve the quality. Right now, they are producing more knives than they're actually able to check, I think. They also need to start being wiser in their choices of knives to bring back out of the vault, because some of them have just not been the world's greatest choices as far as I'm concerned. Not too crazy about the baby dock. I did not buy one. I'm not going to. Oh, where else was I at? Oh, the other thing I wanted to talk about was basically the future of knife collecting. I love it when people talk about I got to get all these. I'm collecting GEC knives, and they're keeping them in the tubes and all this other stuff, and they're expecting to retire on them or something. Here's the deal. If you're buying the knife, I don't think it's going to go up that high in value within your own lifetime. I really don't. We talk about like this knife here. I can get this knife for about, on eBay. eBay prices are often higher than what you would find if you were to run into this at a flea market. At a flea market, I would probably be able to get this knife for about $5-10 at a flea market. When it first came out, it sold for about $5-10. When you adjust for inflation, I just overpaid for the knife, and the knife is now used. On eBay, you can probably get this knife for 20, 30 bucks. Sometimes you might see it sell for much higher than that, but if you're patient, you can get this knife for about 20 bucks on eBay. I was patient. I got it for about 20 bucks on eBay. At 20 bucks, it was keeping up with inflation. You know, I did not really, the person who sold it, I guess they might look at it and say, oh man, I made some money off of that knife. Well, they made some money off of it because they didn't buy it, or they bought it at a flea market or a garage sale for a lower price, and then they sold it on eBay. And the reason I'm buying it on eBay is because there's no decent flea market or an estate sale in my area where I'm going to find something like this. Excuse me, I'm sorry. My point being is these knives, like the GEC knives, the only people who are making a profit off of these knives are the people who are buying it immediately and then flipping it on eBay. They're making a price. They're making a killing on it because they're usually paying double, and it's because of immediate high demand. I'm reminded of a person I know who bought some barbecue sauce at a special event. And it was a limited barbecue sauce that was being offered through this brewery. And if you bought that barbecue sauce at the brewery on the day of the special event, you paid like 10 bucks for this little bottle of barbecue sauce, which was about the size of, say, this little jug here. Okay? So $15 for a barbecue sauce and something like this, maybe a little bit bigger than this. He was able to sell it the next day on eBay for $100 because people just weren't there and they couldn't get it and they wanted it so badly, and so they bought it for $100 because they really needed that barbecue sauce. That's what's happening with these knives when they're being resold. Will they still go up in value beyond that double price that people are paying on eBay today? I see 10-year-old Great Eastern knives similar to this on eBay with the buy it now price, and I follow them all the time. It's like $280, and I watch it, and I watch the time run out, and then the knife just gets relisted $280. No one is buying it. Why are they not buying it? Because it's already hit the market value. It's not going to go up any higher. If anything, as time goes, it will probably drop. When will these knives become more valuable? Personally, I don't anticipate they're going to go up in great value. I think we are living in the twilight years of the traditional pattern knives. And I hate to say that because I really love traditional pattern knives, but the the market isn't there for them right now. If you cannot sell a new traditional pattern knife at the at a reasonable price, you know, then you're not going to be able to sell an old knife to people later, because the folks who are the people who are mostly trying to grab these traditional pattern knives, people who wanted them in their youth and could not afford them at that time. And now they have a little bit of money and now they want it. So 20, 30 years later, they wanted the knife. But if people are not interested in a case knife today, then they're not going to be more interested in the knife 30 years from now because it wasn't the knife they were interested in their youth. A lot of the knives that we collect today, we're collecting because they meant something to us in our youth. The reason I'm bringing this up is because I also know a person who was really into Lionel trains, and he paid, lots of money for some really great Lionel trains 20 years ago. You know, this Lionel caboose was, $500 20 years ago. What's it worth today? About 250 to another collector. But beyond the collectors who were also more or less his age, they just didn't mean anything because the idea of the Lionel train was fading, just as the idea of the traditional pocket knife is kind of in its waning years. I hate to say that. And I don't know if there's going to be this new market where people are more interested in the Spyderco's because, well, like this Spyderco, this one is like Spyderco Dragonfly has been around for over 25 years. So is it a traditional? Not quite, but you know what I mean? Is there a market for collecting old Spyderco's? I see some prices on eBay, but again, these are probably people who wish they would have bought it 20 years ago. And the price that they're going to pay for it now is just barely keeping up with the price of inflation. So I don't know if this is where you want to put your retirement fund in. Let me just put it that way. And you really need to, if you're looking at this is going to be a great collection for my grandchildren, you better find out if your grandchildren are at all interested in it, because they may not be. They may be interested in, this is the knife that my papa always carried with him. They might be interested in that knife, but if you did not carry any of these other knives, that's not something that's going to be where their heart is interested in. It's like, oh they'll be, yeah, my papa used to collect knives. I think I'm going to collect knives too. Some of them, I would say 1 in 20 might happen that way. Most of your grandchildren are not going to be interested in your knife collection. I hate to say that, but I really do believe that. Most of them, they're going to go in an estate sale, and this knife and this knife could very well sell for the same $15 at an estate sale. And someone will be really happy with this, and other people will be like, oh, well, it was just a knife I wanted to throw in my pocket and use, and they don't even care that it was, this collector's knife from GEC or anything else. Same with the Sea Dragon. It's like, I don't know why it was brown and blue, but I liked it, so I bought it, and I'm using it now. And I know that because, well, let me show you another knife I got. Sorry, I gotta walk away again. I think this is one of 1,000 or maybe 2,500. Notice the special shield there, case 113. This is the 113th year of case, I believe. And that's what the shield stood for. Well, whoever bought this knife, they didn't buy it because of the shield. They didn't buy it because it was a special knife. They bought it because they were carrying it. How do I know that? I don't know if you can see it there, but the blade tip, it's not only rounded off a bit there, it is bent. Somebody actually was using this knife. They bought it, they used it. I found it on eBay. Didn't realize that the blade tip was bent. I got it for a fair price though, and really nice, CV. That was the one reason I was buying it. Sorry for the coughing. But, at this point, it's hard to say that this knife is in collector grade condition because it is used. It's got the scratches on there from use. It's got the blade tip that is bent. The only thing on here that even would make you think that this is a knife that was designed for collecting was the case 113 shield. But the person who bought that one also didn't buy it because he was collecting case knives. He bought it because he wanted to use it. found it in a store. There were these were uncommon knives, and they charged a little bit more for them. But for some reason, that person bought it and thought, "Man, this is a nice knife. I need a big old chunky Stockman, and I'm going to carry it." And they used it, and that's what happens with people who are not knife collectors when they run into a knife. They decide to use that knife that other people decided to keep in the tube, and that's just the way it is. And I got to tell you, I think I hate to say it because I am such a fan of traditional knives, but if someone were to ask me, is the world of traditional knife collectors growing or shrinking? I would say it's shrinking. Is the value of your knives going up or down? I would definitely say it is dropping. And will there still be interest in traditional knives in the future? Yeah, there will still be some interest, but right now the interest is fading. And I tell you what, if Case folds, because right now Case relies heavily on the traditional knife collector, people who collect traditional knives, and they're not interested in the knives that are sold on the secondary market. They're interested in the ones that are being sold through their retailers because that's the money that goes towards Case. Anything on the secondary market, I only buy old Case knives. Well, you're not helping Case survive at all. Now you might, and I'm not telling anyone that they need to start buying Case knives either. This is the fact of life, but Case needs to survive if you want to see traditional knives continue to be made. And they will also need to adjust the way they're doing things. So modern traditionals or modern slip joints, uh, modern style knives like with their other lines to actually supplement their ability to continue to produce traditional knives, which is something similar to what Baron Son does. Oh, Baron Son doesn't make all their knives in the United States either. A lot of their modern folders are made elsewhere, and that's something that Case needs to consider. Producing knives in other locations other than the United States, but they should have certain knives that they only make in the United States and will only make in the United States, similar to the way Buck and the 110 is their USA flagship knife. So, if it's the Case Trapper is always going to be made in the USA, that's fine. But and my fear though is if Case were to close, if they were to go in bankruptcy, and they were to be bought by a company similar to the people who own Camillus, and decided that they wanted to take all their Case knives and just basically turn them into big box store knives, so that you know how you can find the Camillus knives at Home Depot, you can find them at Walmart and things like that, but you don't find them at the nicer, higher end places where you find a Case knife. If that's what they were to end up doing, the brand would kind of just fizzle away, and they would end up being just another company making, you know, uh, modern folders and stuff like that, and modern style hunting knives and stuff like that. And you really bastardize and destroy the name of Case. And if that were to happen, if Case were to kind of go away like that, it would be bad for the entire knife industry. GEC would feel it, Baron Son would feel it, Moormaker, they would feel it. Just about Buck would even feel it. I don't think people realize how much Case influences the world of traditional knives, because if they can't make it, if Case cannot make it making traditional knives, I don't think GEC is going to be able to do it if they're selling the knives at double the price. What you would end up with is just about every traditional knife out there would then become a knife being made out of China. You wouldn't see knives being made in the United States in the traditional frames anymore. That's my opinion. You would still see them lingering around in pawn shops and stuff like that, and on the secondary market, but it would really be like kind of as devastating. It would be more devastating than when Camillus folded, more devastating than when Ontario folded, and they're the last of the breed. Imperial is gone. Colonial is fading fast. You know, Camilla's gone. Imperial gone. Schrade, yeah, it's still here, but it's China. You know what I mean? So a lot of traditional knife success and failure relies right now on how well Case does. At least that's my thoughts on the matter. I would love to hear what other people think. I could be totally full of crap here, but the way I see it, especially now because of Case going through such difficult times, the fact that they might be on the verge of bankruptcy, the fact that even good old Victorinox is having really struggling times now, but they are more diversified than Case. Case owned by Zippo. I don't think Zippo Lighters is doing that great either, to tell you the truth. I can't. I see them sold in some gas stations, but I'd never see anyone buying one. I just see them in the racket or in the rack, and I go back to the same gas station over and over, and I don't see the Zippos moving anywhere. But you know, the little disposable lighters, they go out the door right away. So I don't know. It's struggling. Let me put it that way. And if Case dies, I think there goes the USA traditional pattern knife market. Yeah, a generational factor for sure. I don't know. It worries me a little bit these days, and it's worried me for some time, especially when we're competing, when Case is competing with products that make a pretty good knife. I'm not downgrading Rough Rider here or other companies that make knives in China because, well, if you follow the channel, you know I collect Rough Riders, I collect Case. I would collect GEC if I could get them, but I'm not going to rush to get them or anything like that. But yeah, I'm not sure what else I could say at this point, and I have been rambling for quite some time. No, Rosecraft is not the future of slip joints going. I seriously doubt that, seriously. There are several other companies that make other traditional folders. Rosecraft is just the company that is really pushing hard, especially on Facebook. And they have several mouthpieces out there for them on YouTube. But Rosecraft is a modern folder similar to this and similar to, well, I don't know. Let's say here, Rough Rider Reserve. After all Rosecraft did is take what they knew from Rough Rider Reserve, run off and start their own company. So anyway, we won't go there today, even though I just did. But sore point for me. Sorry about that. And where else? Other modern folders out there. Oh, even these guys, semi-modern. But anyway, what else can I say? There's a lot of companies still out there doing a lot of good stuff. Rosecraft, I cannot fault them for their quality or anything like that. But I notice how their 5-year plan keeps changing. Now it's a 10-year plan and so on and so forth. Anyway, yeah, you threw me off there. Yeah, I'm with you there, Speed 6. If I'm going to spend that $50, $60, there's very few of the Rough Rider Reserves I have bought. And the ones I bought have been relatively low, or I bought them because they were of interest to me. This is one of them I bought, and I actually like this little half hawk. Well, it isn't a half hawk. What do they call it? The Hawkeye. And I found this one to be really useful. And I actually used it quite a bit, and I still use this one. And it was in the $45, $50 range, which is a little expensive, but I really did like it. Then we got this brother here. I like this one too. The only thing that scares me about this one is, boom, man, that I keep thinking it's going to go too far. But it's a nice knife. This is also given to me. Quite a few of my modern folders were given to me, matter of fact. But I do have a few. Matter of fact, I bought some earlier Rough Rider Reserve knives, and after buying them, I really was like, it's a pretty cool knife. I like it, but I did sit there and question, why did I spend $70 for that knife when I could get a similar Rough Rider knife in 448 instead of D2 for a third of the price, and that's where it went. Yeah, since here, same here. If I'm, yeah, once it's approaching $60, it's hard for me to do that. I know, and the thing is the odd thing about it is traditional pattern knives. This is something that gets me. Traditional pattern knives. When we look at something like this, when I bought this knife, it was like $119. $119, and that is for a lot of people, that is an extreme price to pay for a traditional pattern knife. Extremely high. But that is like the starting prices on Spyderco's. It's the starting prices on so many modern folders. Even modern folders coming out of China. $80 is nothing. You know, anything under $100 is considered a budget knife when it comes to a modern folder. Anything in a traditional slip joint, in order for it to be considered a budget knife, it's usually under $25. You ever think of that? That just blows my mind. That if I'm looking, I can't grab, this. This is like $30, the Klein tool, and it's a modern hawkbill. You push this button and you can actually flip it with, if I'm not in front of a camera, I can just flip it out and flip it closed by holding the button down, right? They call it a flick knife. It's kind of a gravity knife. It's locked otherwise. But this is $30. This is very much a budget knife when it comes to a modern folder. It's also an actual working tool. But so many of the modern folders, and I'm talking about like the Benchmades, the Spyderco's, Wee knives, Civivi, things of this nature. So many of them have such a high price, and you're looking at like $150, and they're still considered like in the budget category for a modern flipper knife or whatever you want to call it. And if the knife is $40 or less, oh my gosh, it's a gas station knife. Do I have a gas station knife here? I did, but I think I got rid of it. Oh, here we go. This Rough Rider. This is a gas station knife because it uses 448 steel. And this is an $8 knife, but you can make them for $8, but you can't sell them for $8 and refer to it as anything other than a gas station knife. But it's just a modern folder but it doesn't have a super steel. I cut up more cardboard boxes with this thing than I care to admit to. But it's a gas station knife. It's because of what it is. Anyway, I don't know. Now I've really hit the limit, and I'm ranting and everything. I apologize to all the folks out there who collect Rosecraft knives. This is why I don't talk about them on the channel ever, or anything else. And I have my reasons. I did not go into all the reasons, but I really do need to apologize about that. I shouldn't have flown off the handle about it, but I've got my reasons behind it. Any case. The thing is there are so many other knives out there in the world that I don't need to worry about one brand, and I shouldn't think about it. With that said, let me see here. Leave on a positive note. With luck, Case will solve some of its problems. With luck, Case will think about new methods of quality control. And like I said, my three tips to them is consider some form of offshore marketing for a lower priced knife. Maybe call it something other than Case. Use one of the old Case names like Kinfolk or something. Bring back a name from the past and use that. Case Brothers, I don't know, anything, and use it as their budget line and make it somewhere else, offshore. Continue to make certain knives, no matter what pattern, in the United States. Reduce the number of knives you're trying to put out so you can concentrate on quality. Work more on getting some modern folders out there, such as wherever that sodbuster went. These are the things that I think they need to be doing. And then that might help them survive and improve in quality, because as much as I hate to admit it, yeah, they do have some quality issues. I don't think they're as dramatic as some people make them out to be. As I showed, every knife has blade rub. You can always show light through the back springs if you try hard enough. But the thing is once you get that reputation for poor quality, you have to take special measures to work it back and get back to being known as a quality brand. And that's what Case needs to do now. They need to, take extra measures to push forward, because as it goes, I think the entire traditional pattern slip joint market is kind of slowly fading. And if this is going to be your bread and butter knife, and then Case needs to step it up a notch. And they need to do more than fancy slogans and special factory offerings. It's going to take more than that to get Case to get on a rebound. Any case, with that said, I will let you go, and I will talk to you again soon.